Here we are. So hello everyone, it's a great pleasure to welcome you to this highly anticipated panel discussion titled Rethinking Audience Engagement and brought to you by Artelize, the world of performing arts in one location. I am Paola Cacciatori, co-founder and chief commercial officer at Artelize, and I am truly delighted to be your host today. But first, let me thank you all for being here. We have an incredible turnout with over 360 registrations from performing arts organizations of all sizes and genres. We're excited to have an amazing panel of experts with diverse experiences and impressive skills in their areas. Let's meet them right away. And by the way, for more info, you can check out their LinkedIn profile in the chat just below. First of all, a very warm welcome to Aubrey Bergauer, founder and CEO of Changing the Narrative. Welcome, Aubrey.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
And then again, a warm welcome as well to Matthias Röder, CEO of the Karajan Institute.
Hi, everyone.
And great to see you, Christine Osazuwa, founder and CEO of the conference Measure of Music and music influencer. Welcome, Christine.
Great to be here. Hi, everybody.
Then joining us from Belgium, Bart van der Roost, Secretary General of the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra of Liège. A warm welcome to you, Bart.
Bonsoir, good evening.
And also a very, very warm welcome to Markus Petersen, Senior Vice President at Warner Classics. Great to have you here.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So unfortunately, Donna Collins, CEO of Asconas Holt and Opus 3, can't join us today as he's needed for an urgent matter. However, he will soon feature in a new episode of the Artelize podcast, which of course we highly recommend you check out. But you should know we brought another great guy to today's conversation. We're excited to have Sune Hjerrild, Artelize's CEO and founder. Thank you, Sune, for jumping in.
Thank you for having me.
So you're jumping in as you probably did so many times in the past as a professional opera singer, right? But anyway, for the past decade, you've been propelling the performing arts forward as a tech entrepreneur. So you have raised millions of dollars for your startups. And by the way, congrats for the latest raise of $1.1 million for Artelize. Anyway, before diving into our juicy topics, a quick word about Artelize. We're a technology company that specializes in the so-called audience tech space. We're also experts in data aggregation and AI. Our team consists of former artists, tech entrepreneurs, and arts administrators. And we have more than a decade of experience within audience tech and in building digital infrastructure for performing arts. We encourage you to be an active part of this discussion, so please feel free to ask questions. And there is a Q&A button below the screen here. We'll select a few questions to discuss with our panelists if time allows. We have 4 topics to discuss, and this means that we have about 10 minutes per topic, but I'm time boxing everything, so don't worry, we'll make sure to cover everything. So without any more delay, let's dive right in and start with our first topic, the current state of audience engagement. I will start this with a quote actually from Donna Collins himself. We had a conversation recently about the panel's topics, and Donna shared that the performing arts are constantly evolving, especially, of course, during events like the pandemic, but he stressed the importance of adapting to these changes and embracing new methods, including technology, even if some of us are hesitant or not very familiar with it. So let me start with Aubrey. Aubrey, you've been hailed as the Steve Jobs of the classical music by the Observer. Your innovative academy, Run It Like a Business, is quite remarkable. And let me also mention the upcoming launch of your book with the same name. The book is coming, by the way, on February the 6th, and we highly recommend it. We have also a link for that in the chat. Please share with us, Aubrey, your personal take on the current state of audience engagement.
Oh, Paola, you are so good. Thank you for plugging all that. Current state of audience engagement, I have a couple thoughts on that. One, we know the trends right now are everybody's trying to get their audiences back. And the reality is those trends of declining audiences were in place before the pandemic. That just accelerated and exacerbated trends we were already seeing. So here we are. And I would say parallel to that thought of combating the existing trend that was already in place is that a lot of us, a lot of organizations, a lot of us as administrators, I think have really focused on programming as a solution. And not to say that there's not a conversation to be had about programming and diversifying and expanding and all of that that's necessary, but it's not a full and complete solution. And so I would say audience engagement is about almost everything tangential to the programming. And that's the thesis of the book. That's a lot of what I've had success with in my past work and clients I work with, but there's a lot to unpack there, but it's how do we start optimizing everything around the art, because the art itself we've been perfecting for a few hundred years now.
Thank you so much, Aubrey. Absolutely. And now I would like to ask Bart. Bart, you are a musician between music and business. And you have over 15 years of experience, and you're leading your arts organization literally to new heights, driving funding and expanding audience reach. Please let us know what you think about the current state of the audience engagement.
Yeah, I can only fully agree with what Aubrey just said. And I also think it depends on your point of view. It's never been easier and it has never been more difficult. It comes to mind, there's this quote by, what's his name, Warren Buffett, it's only when the tide goes down when you discover who has been swimming naked. And I think that the pandemic has clearly shown that those of us in the arts industry who only are focusing on product or only focusing on marketing and so on, you will see that the problems are there. For instance, in our case, I'm very happy to work in Liège in the south of Belgium. There is this sort of more or less stable situation where over the last 10 to 15 years, we have been well-funded, good marketing plans, audience engagement. We have heavily invested in everything which is done with educational stuff, good conductors, our own hall. So then you see when the pandemic came in, actually we thrived as an organization because immediately we knew what to do, we know how to change. And around us, people who were like only focusing on, we have to be the best possible musicians or the best possible players. All of a sudden, they lacked marketing skills, they lacked sales skills, they lacked adapting to these different circumstances. And I do think there is an issue to be tackled. It's perhaps old school, but whenever in doubt, I always go back to what I studied. And I think the theory of Philip Kotler still applies, the 7 Ps or something like marketing. And this is the checklist that I go through in my head. Do I have the right people? Is my pricing all right? Right place, right product, the right physical evidence, right process, and so on. And there you see, I think, those who are thriving, have at least 5 or 6 or 7 of those pieces in place. Those who are struggling, they should really look at all the aspects. Indeed, as Aubrey already said.
Thank you very much, Bart. Absolutely. That's very interesting, this difference also with Europe and US, of course. Christine, you started at 16 booking bands, but then you've blended your passion for music with an MBA and MA in data science. Quite impressive. So based on your personal experience in the music industry, how do you perceive the current state of the audience engagement? And what are, in your opinion, the most significant changes that you've observed recently?
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with a lot with what everyone else has been saying. I think everyone is starting to realize right now the importance of owning your audience, which is great that we've gotten around to that point, but I think it's taken way too long. So a lot of people are in a really scary position, basically. What I've said about the music industry for a really long time is that we are an industry that has given up our audience consistently to other people. What I mean by that is I've worked in major labels, our audience has lived on DSPs like Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. I work in the live space now. A lot of people give up their audiences to platforms like Ticketmaster, AXS, etc. So there's no point in which anyone actually is owning their audience. They don't have visibility, they don't have access, they don't know if it's grown or changed over time. And so I think people are starting to finally realize that, hey, I don't actually know who my audience is. I don't know who my fans are. And now we're getting to the point where they're like, okay, I need to stop working to build more subscribers on Instagram and figure out how to build my email list or my SMS list or my own community or things like that, where you can actually cultivate and grow and see how your fans and your audience are changing over time, rather than always hopping to the next algorithm and the next trend.
Yeah, absolutely, Christine. Thank you so much for this. Now, Sune, working with audience engagement and tech for over a decade, in your opinion, what stands out as the main problem when it comes to audience engagement?
Well, thank you for that question. Well, I see the main problem actually as the fragmentation of the information, making it much too hard for both artists and arts organizations to connect with their potential audience, just as Christine just described. Currently, performing arts-related content is simply scattered across the internet with no central hub for an easy access. And in fact, we've seen very successful examples of such an aggregation, for instance, by IMDb, who is the #1 go-to for the movie industry. But so far, this has not happened in the performing arts industry in any successful way. So, and I hope you'll forgive me for saying this also, everybody listening, that all your different websites and beautiful and professional as they may be, they're still little islands in the sea of information out there, and therefore they really can't solve the fundamental problem of being accessible and discoverable enough for our audience. And in reality, yeah, it's quite simply you can say a confusing experience for them to discover what's going on in our business. So that's one of the main problems. And why haven't we solved it? Well, yes, it's both very expensive in terms of investment, and it's also requires a quite an advanced technology to aggregate all this scattered information to one location. And maybe that's why I'm here today, to tell you the good news that now we actually have that technology. AI has elevated technology to new levels to be able to identify and gather information into one location. And that's what we've been working on really meticulously here at Artelize. Final note, sorry to make it, I hope I make it short enough, but as you know, we rarely compete with each other over the same audiences as producers. Actually, in fact, quite the contrary. By creating a centralized platform with a multifaceted offering, I think we can not only improve our reach to a younger and more diverse audience, but I also think we can facilitate that very healthy cross-pollination between the different art forms. And I think that is one of the most important arenas for potential growth going forward.
Thank you very much, Sune, for this very insightful comment. And now I would like actually to engage our audience with a little poll. So let me, give me just a few seconds to launch it. Okay. It should be coming very soon. There you go. So this little poll, you have a few seconds to just vote. And this is about audience engagement efforts. Most of my first-time audience return within 6 months. And you can exactly give your answer. And I will share with you the results as well. That's a nice feature of the Zoom webinar. Okay. We're getting there. It's going to be interesting. Okay, and there we go. Okay, so I will share with you all the results. And we can see that the highest rate was disagree or don't know. Exactly. So on this topic, actually, we will dive into our second, the second question. And let me introduce first the topic community superpower. So probably we do need community superpowers to have that audience return, by the way. But this concept can represent two things. the superpowers you need to build a strong community, of course, but not least the superpowers within that community when you start having those loyal fans and enthusiasts acting as motivated ambassadors for your own organization. And that's why I would like to start with Christine. So when I say superpowers, I cannot avoid thinking about superfans. And can you please define who they are, who superfans are? Why are they so important? How do we find them? And maybe what are the key strategies to engage and constantly grow such a fan base?
Yeah, definitely. I love superfans. I love talking about superfans. I got my start running street teams for artists when I was young, so I've always understood the power of activating your fan base and identifying those loyal fans as early as possible and rewarding them. And so what I believe a superfan is someone that has gone beyond just a lover of the music or a lover of the company or whatever it might be, but to the point where they're evangelizing it, where they're very loyal, where they're repeat buying, repeat attending, repeat listening. When I was at Label, one of the metrics that we looked at was streaming, obviously. And what we found at the time, this was years ago, but one of the metrics we found was that the top 5% of listeners were accounting for about 50% of all the streams. That number has shifted and changed over time, but it's still a very small amount, account for a very large amount of streams, basically. And that translates everything. I'm sure everyone's heard of the 80-20 rule, and to take that for what it may be for your super fans, but there's a small core of your audience that love you, that evangelize you, that are accounting for all of your money, all of your revenue, all of the time spent, all of the commitment. And those are the people that are incredibly important that you need to cultivate, because if you're doing things well, they're going to be your evangelists. They're going to tell their friends, they're going to refer people over, they're going to do all the things that you do when you love something. And so they're incredibly valuable, and figuring out how to find them, how to then give them what they're asking for, ask them what they want, and then also not treating them like they're an ATM that you can just continuously get money from is also really important. So figuring out what that value exchange is, what that community looks like, rather than just say, hey, I have more stuff for you to buy from me. What does it look like to actually build a relationship with these people? Because if you build relationships, like I said, I ran street teams when I was young, that was where everyone gets value out of it, because I got something to put on my resume when I was 15 years old, and they got someone that was helping them with their marketing, for example. What is it that you can provide? What value can they provide you that you can provide back to make the super fan relationship actually work?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Christine. So valuable and informative. Now, Matthias, you are an expert in combining the traditional and the new. Your Beethoven X, the AI project, where AI was used to complete Beethoven's unfinished 10th Symphony, is quite remarkable. And as a co-founder of both the Mindshift and Zonophilia Foundation, together with your wife, Zeda Röder, you promote a scientific approach to creativity. So can you tell us how we can use technology to connect creatives from around the globe and build new artistic experiences, for example?
That's a very difficult question, and I don't have a good answer for that, I think, because it depends on what your organization is, what it does, who your audience is right now, who it might be in the near-term future. The way I see technology is it's a tool for us to experiment, to try out new things, to enhance something that is working. For instance, like Christine said, this relationship with the fan is something that is very precious. How can you automate it? Do you want to automatize it? Is there technology that allows you to actually scale this kind of intimacy between a super fan and the artist or the orchestra or the concert house? These are all questions that everyone has to really answer for themselves. I think by using the technology that is out there in the full sort of stack of possibilities, you are starting to see what the potential is, and you learn as you keep doing it. So I think my advice would always be just try from the bottom up to think about how you can digitize the whole experience, and then try out new technologies to see, can I scale this experience beyond my current reach? Does that make people happy? Is this resulting in a beneficial relationship? And there's no one size fits all answer, really.
Yeah, thank you, Matthias. But the approach is actually also a key element that we wanted to highlight here, and I absolutely agree with what you just said. Markus, your dynamic role in leading operations and business development globally at Warner Classics for 10 years is part of your career spanning 3 decades in the realm of classical music, with labels of the caliber also of Naxos and Universal. So in music recording, the goal is to engage in these long-lasting relations with the audience, to keep feeding that commitment that turns them into loyal customers, like the super fans that Christine mentioned, for example. Do you think the role of the artist has changed today, especially in the post-pandemic era, when it comes to connecting with and attracting this type of audience?
I think the role and as well the requirements to the artists have significantly changed. I'm obviously taking the recorded music industry perspective here, but everything is intertwined. It's not a surprise to you that we've seen major shifts in our industry over the past, let's say, decade, from a purchase-based model to an access-based model where the audience actually has to listen to the content rather than just putting the big shiny box set into a bookshelf. And this is a game changer for our communication and as well a game changer for the artist communication. And it offers a variety of opportunities. I would say the main difference over the past decade, I mean, this shift has already happened pre-pandemic. Pandemic was a catalyst for sure that accelerated everything. But the main change is that now the engagement and building up a fan base is not event-driven in the sense like, get a ticket for my new tour, buy my new release, but it is a constant engagement with the audience. It's the opportunities to get into direct real-time contact with the super fans is crucial. And this certainly comes with its own complexities. And being mindful of the opportunities, of the do's and don'ts, and having smart tools to filter through all the data noise that's there is crucial nowadays.
Absolutely. Thank you, Markus, for pointing that out. Now, who doesn't like a great story? Bart, I know you have many, but that one about a certain involuntary mistake that led to selling out a season without even displaying the program at the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra in Liège, to me sounds like a real superpower. So tell us, what's the formula of that success?
Yeah, it was actually a funny story. And once again, I think we are kind of, we're not unique, and it has been a mistake, but we really know our audience well. And with most of our customers, we have relationships that go on for like 40, 50 years. And what we also see is we heavily invest in this, what we call the intergenerational programming, where we see that grandmothers and grandfathers bring their children, bring their grandchildren to the concert, and there we see this connection being made. And secondly, I have to add to that the ecosystem that we have around us is very, very, very healthy. We own our own hall. We are well subsidized. We have a high school of music close by. We have a music school close by. And the general political sense in the south of Belgium is still to invest in culture as a sort of a basic human right, like public transport is there. But to come to the story, we wanted to launch our last season next year, and we were trying out a new emailing system, and all of a sudden we did something wrong, but we didn't know about that. So we blasted out an email to what the so-called superfans, or the 400 or 500 people that we have that are responsible for the majority of all our ticket sales. And we blasted out the email system with everything okay, pricing, subscription prices and so on, except the programming. And we didn't know about that as well, but yeah, people started subscribing, started buying tickets for stuff they didn't know. We only found out 3 weeks after. In the meanwhile, we sold about 3,000 to 4,000 tickets over the season. And what you see there is actually people said, yeah, I don't care what you actually play. I want to be with you. I want to be part of the family. I want to be there when the magic happens. And this is something I already understood beforehand. I'm not saying that programming is not important. Programming is important for your image and so on, but it's far, far, far more important that you have an authentic connection with the people around you. And that's something we heavily invest in. And just to of course, we added the programming and then we sold some more. But we are really in a sort of a sweet spot right now where we actually we actually had a meeting this morning where we said, yeah, we should actually double our subscription series because we simply do not have enough seats to match all the demand for the subscription. It happens to be that we have a hall of 1,000, so it's quite easy to fill, but still. And I do think that's the main lesson that we learned there. Once again, be authentic in what you do. For instance, something I always do, I love tools, I love technology, but I even love more talking to people, and I literally go out every single concert to a subscription. But somebody who comes in for the first time, I know who is on which seats and what type of buyer it is. I go to him or her, say, what are you doing here? How are you? How can we help you? And I think this is an attitude that we have not only in the staff, but also in our musicians and also in everybody who has an interaction with the audience. And I think, yeah, that helps. So our sales department is not the 2-3 people that do the marketing and sales, but it's actually the whole organization plus everybody around it. And I think that's the sweet spot where you're now at, and what you should strive for, I think.
Amazing. And I also know you brought a coffee machine in your ticket office, right? Just so everybody could feel at home and have a chat, not just buying a ticket.
Yeah. And also there it's a role that we play. Of course, majority of ticket sales is online right now. But when we had to decide whether to keep our ticketing, yes or no, yeah, we all said immediately, yeah, we have to keep it. It is also a sort of a role that we play in society. But then the people behind the ticket counter, yeah, let's educate them. Let's make sure that they know how to do this, and let's make sure that they can sell without ever feeling that there is a sales going on.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it reconnects a little bit with also that idea of not considering them as ATM only, like Christine was saying. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Amazing. Thank you so much for this uplifting and beautiful success story. Now, Aubrey, as the chief executive of the California Symphony, your leadership was actually instrumental in doubling the audience size and nearly quadrupling the donor base. So, of course, you can transform pretty much scarcity into opportunity. And you talk a lot about adopting a customer-centric mindset as well. So can that be a superpower when it comes to community building?
Absolutely. I think it's not just a superpower, I think it's essential. And so I just want to pull together a few threads I've heard because I think it really illustrates the answer to this question. I love what Matthias said about scaling intimacy. I want to start quoting that everywhere I go. How do we scale intimacy at our arts organizations? Yeah. And a bias that's coming to mind. This is a human bias. All humans experience this, but that prevents us from scaling intimacy. So the opposite of this superpower of humans and customer centricity is the hindsight bias. And so very quickly, the hindsight bias is, I see nodding heads, you know already, but it's when we as humans learn something, anything, we forget what it's like to not know that thing. It's also called the curse of knowledge. And so for us as marketers, as leaders, as administrators, as people trying to grow and develop audiences, when we're trying to scale intimacy, develop websites that are accessible, get those first timers to come back. 66% of people on that poll that we just took said either don't know or they're not coming back. When we're trying to address all these things, again, I'm bringing threads together and eventually develop those super fans, it starts with trying to combat the hindsight bias and trying to remember what's it like to be a newcomer for a classical music experience. And that's a very difficult exercise because of this bias. Not impossible, but difficult. So being customer-centric, yes, it's a superpower. It's not easy, but it is also essential to our work to develop and grow our audiences. And I just got to say, underscoring Bart's story of not even putting the programming in the email, like that is so interesting. And just really, in some ways, I think illustrates this idea that maybe listing some composer names and artist names is not the way to combat hindsight bias.
Yes, so much to think about, right? And Absolutely. So now I would like to ask Sune. Sune, in your opinion, can technology provide superpowers when it comes to community building?
Well, yes, not very surprisingly, I truly believe so. To be on top of the game, I think our industry needs to constantly develop and adopt new technology. And first of all, utilize this new infrastructure to enable and to measure the impact of our communication, our growth strategies, our new experiments, especially with the audience games. How can we get them through the door and really inspire them to come back, which is one of the most important things. In this way, we can intelligently develop a way to interact with our audience based on solid feedback. And that's where I think some of the superpowers comes in. We got to know our customer, like Bart also said. Again, also, we need to recognize that artists play an essential role. We just said that maybe they don't, because we don't have to mention the program. But I actually think that they play a role as advocates for and also evangelists for the season, for where they are hired as you could say a part of the ecosystem. And all producers can both monitor, guide, and support when the right technology is available. All this they can monitor and guide the communication. And here, Artelize, we call that the capability to orchestrate your artist resources during the season. In other words, to empower your community to build community. On top of that, you also need tools to identify and, more importantly, I would say, incentivize influencers and superfans in different ways. And that's, of course, I would say, almost a topic for a whole panel in itself. But yes, we need that technology. And here, I would say, especially AI could and will play a huge role, because when we can measure, incentivize, intelligently orchestrate our existing community and thereby communicate to an ever-expanding target group coming from multiple sources across multiple platforms at the same time, that's what I would call community superpowers. The good news is that we're working on a solution for this as we speak, and there's a lot of things going on out there to help the industry connect in this way.
Absolutely.
Paula,
it's a super exciting time. Yes, Bart.
May I just add? I fully agree that you should never assume anything about your audience. Should also never dumb it down as well. So it's for me, it's a clear difference between making sure that they're accessible and not making it too. That's the not mentioning of the composer names. I'm actually happen to be somebody who likes to learn and to understand who is playing, why they're playing. But it's a typical mistake that we make, all of us, that we assume that whatever we want to have as a sort of a marketing experience, that automatically other one wanted to have that as well. So I just wanted to add to that.
Thank you very much, Bart. And yes, the conversation is getting very inspiring. And but please stay tuned for an exciting invitation from Artelize at the end to take action on what we learned today. But now let's move to the second part of this panel. And if community powers was a highly awaited topic discussion based on your numerous feedbacks, as a clear number one, we have building an effective infrastructure for audience engagement. But actually, what is that? What are the key elements that make that work? And what does it take to use such a tool? So let's shed now some light into what could become the most effective and efficient way to connect, engage, broaden, and retain our audience. Bart, actually, I wanted to start with you again. You told me about the importance of having a data manager hired in every arts organization, and you mentioned that also a bit previously. But could you share examples of how technology has been successfully leveraged to grow audience in your personal experience?
Yeah, I think you need to understand what to tell, and you need to understand through which way you're telling it. So, and data science is crucial in this. What we try to do, or what we tend to do with people, is ask them an awful lot. So everybody who comes in, before and after, we ask what are their expectations of beforehand, and afterwards, did we match the expectations? We also ask literally face to face, as I told you earlier. And one thing I can show you, we didn't see it ourselves, but our ticketing system actually showed there is a decline in your audiences for families. And we had a Saturday afternoon family series, and we had a Tuesday night for younger audiences. And we just didn't know, and we, as Aubrey earlier stated, we started talking about the product. It's wrong. We need to change the conductor or whatever, or we need to only do Mozart, or we need to do anything but Mozart. But then we asked the audience, why are you slowly but steadily stopping to come to our concerts? And the answer was really surprising. Yeah, because my kids have other stuff to do. I have to go to basketball. I have to go grocery shopping. If you just move the series to Sunday, I'll come again. And so this is a typical thing where we actually were almost at the point of changing what we were doing. It was not a product problem. It was a marketing or a sort of a connection problem. We switched the series to Sunday and it went up again. The same applies, by the way, technology use. We are a student city. Around 50,000 students are in the city. And we saw a clear disconnect between local people and student audiences. We didn't match the students. What we then did with the students is we went out again. We literally asked them, why aren't you coming? And yeah, most typical answers, yeah, we don't know what you're doing, we are afraid, blah, 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 the typical stuff. So what we said to them is, okay, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to offer you a cocktail. The only thing that you need to do for the cocktail is come to the concert before. We don't tell you what it is, and we have somebody explaining literally what is happening, like Bernstein did in the 50s and 60s. We just copied that again. That's called our Music Factory, and it's free if you're a student in the city of Liège. Every month, a Tuesday, 6 to 7, and afterwards a cocktail. Funny thing is, because we have this long customer data, we see that 80% of our subscriptions, but 6 years after, are people who came in from the Music Factory 5-6 years ago. But that's the how to say, the customer acquisition that you sometimes needs to have. And if you work in a high-paced environment where people say, yeah, after 6 months somebody has to come back, I can actually show you in our data that some people don't come back for 6 years for whatever reason, and all of a sudden start then and become subscribers. So that's I think a little bit what technology showed us, that we need to be patient, and also if you don't know, ask. But it's stupidly simple and stupidly difficult at the same time to say.
It's essential for strategize, of course, absolutely. And Christine, together with your passion for music, you have a special relation to pivot tables, and that's demonstrate a unique approach to business and the arts. So what are the tech development in the music industry when it comes to measuring audience engagement? And do you think they're applicable to live performances as well?
Yeah, so what I failed to mention is my day job is I actually work in the ticketing space as well. And so I know a lot about data from that side of things, in addition to from the recorded music and the streaming side that I've worked in over the years. And one thing I feel like, just hearing Bart's examples, that people fail to realize is that it doesn't have to be too complicated. I think sometimes it might feel really daunting to say, oh, you have to understand your data, you have to analyze it, you need to get a data scientist, whatever it might be. You probably don't need that. You probably just need to look at your top selling, the people that are buying the most tickets, the people that are attending the most, not necessarily spending the most money, but the people that are attending the most. You can just reach out to them, you can talk to them. Qualitative data is still data. I think sometimes when people hear data, they immediately think numbers only, not thinking about just picking up the phone or sending the email and just asking the opinions of your most loyal customers. In addition to that, I think there's also a lot to be said about just having a volume of data. So I work for a 10-year-old company, so we have 10 years of historic data to know, hey, we converted people from their freshman year of school all the way up to now that they're having children and they're going to family-friendly events rather than they were going to like club nights when they were 19 years old. So we have that information and we know we can see the trends there. And so no matter what organization that you work at, you probably have very similar information. So even if you don't have an analyst that's going to like dive deep into all the different charts and build different things, you can at least look up, let's look up 10 people and say, hey, How often are they buying? When did they first buy? Is that a trend? If you find that, hey, I want to know more about this, then you can maybe bring someone in, bring a consultant in and do a couple of hours to help you build out some dashboards or things like that. I don't think you need every single fancy tool in the world to be able to do this work. You just need a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and it'll take you a really long way. And so at least know what to ask for, so that if you do decide you need external help, or you do decide you need to do a hire, you actually know what to ask for, rather than having some convoluted job description that asks people to do 12 different things because you're not actually sure what you need.
Absolutely. So much gold in that too. Thank you so much, Christine. Matthias, I think you had your hand raised. Do you want to say something?
Oh, that was for another part of the conversation. We can talk about that later on.
Okay, so I will then ask you a question. So in 2017, you founded the Karajan Music Tech Conference to promote breakthrough technologies in music, media, and audio. And actually, I was so lucky to attend the conference last year. And I must say, from my personal impressions, that I love the atmosphere there, an atmosphere of openness, genuine curiosity, and also a lot of excitement to see what we would be able to do next with the new technology. So what solutions in terms of technology and also mindset do you think would be indispensable in the performing arts to build an audience engagement infrastructure?
Well, you only have very hard questions for me tonight. And the ones that I really can't answer, because again, I think it depends so much on your own use case. For instance, the Karajan Institute is an institution that manages the intellectual property rights of Herbert von Karajan, but also is active in the field of innovation in music. And so for us, what it meant to engage our audience was actually, starting with the artist and what he had done in his lifetime, and to really go into a lot of collecting of data around what he did. Basically, when I took over the job some 12 years ago, we didn't have a database of all of the records he did. And what I mean by that is not necessarily the products, because the labels are very good at, keeping that, having that information. But what are the pieces that he recorded? Who are the artists he worked with? Where was it recorded? Where was this performed by him? So we started to compile a huge database of all of that information. And then we said, okay, what are we going to do with that? We're going to open it up. We started a series of hackathons where people could play around with our data. And we started to build applications on top of it. And then the audience engaged with the data. It's quite counterintuitive in a way. We don't derive data from the audience. We just present the data of the artist and the work that he has done, and the audience congregates around that and helps us also to improve it. So for us, the approach was really to say, everything the man did, let's put it in a database. And our whole team, they learned how to program databases. And I want my team to be able to do an SQL query, so that when the developer talks to them, they know exactly what they are talking about. So this is the kind of integration that was needed for us. It will be very different for someone else, like a publishing house or an orchestra. But I think the key lies in realizing what is the data you have, and trying to make the best job you can do to make it available to third parties. And honestly, I guess I'm preaching the gospel here, because this is exactly what you guys are doing at Artelize. So when we met, I immediately said, oh, you're doing exactly what we did for one artist. You're trying to do it for everyone, which is just amazing.
Thank you so much, Matthias. Yes, absolutely. So much needed right now. But now I have another little poll for our audience. And I'm just launching it very quickly so you have time to vote. There it is. It's about tech and audience engagement. So today I have excellent technological support for my audience engagement efforts. Okay, the vote is going on. And a few more seconds. A lot of activity I can see. And here we go. Okay, I will share the results with you. Disagree. So that's what that was the winning answer. And yes, so this actually will lead us into the next and final topic, the debate on the existence of an audience growth hacker. Have you ever heard of an audience growth hacker in the performing arts? Probably not, right? So today we want to dive into what it truly means to have an audience growth hacker mindset. And we would like to uncover the strategies that can lead to an incremental audience expansion. In fact, the term hacking sometimes carries a negative implication, but in the startup world, the term simply means to incrementally solve hard problems. Well, great, actually. So, Sune, I would like to start with you. Can you kindly describe what audience growth hacking means when applied to performing arts?
Certainly. Well, to give a very short definition, I would describe an audience growth hacker as a person who masters the art of expanding and engaging an audience through data-driven decision-making. Okay, but to expand a little on that, I would say that it's a person or a team that excels in community building, experimentation, and in strategic communication on social media to strengthen relationships. I would say they use the joint superpowers of their artist community and constantly incentivize their audience community to become their primary advocates and influencers. Then, of course, I would say they probably use merchandise. And why do I mention that? But merchandise is a fantastic indicator of engagement. So they use this as a sort of an incentive, but also as an indicator of audience loyalty. Furthermore, they're using data to identify potential donors, and then they are super customer-centric, as we just heard, both in their program and also using feedback in all phases of the planning process and in all phases of inventing new ways to engage with the audience. So it's a multifaceted role that blends analytics with experimentation and creativity to sustainably grow the audience base. I hope that explains it.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for that. This is all a new, really realm that we're exploring. And Markus, in light of your strong analytic and strategic skills, you highlighted how in music recording, you're basically flooded with data. And there is a lot of information that can be extracted about audience behaviors, preferences, and stuff like that. So how important do you think it is to have a data-driven mindset and a tech infrastructure to support this process in 2024?
I think, first of all, let me say that the best data-driven mindset and the best infrastructure doesn't help much if you are not clear where you want to go. And I think it is crucial that as an organization or as well as an artist, you are clear about your profile, about your positioning, that you are consistent and authentic in the way you engage with your audience and how you build your brand. And the example Bart gave is, I think, a perfect example of the powers a trusted brand has. Then I think tech infrastructure is a slightly too big word for me. It scares away a little bit, like, oh my God, I have to invest millions and millions to build up an infrastructure. No, this is not what it is about, I think. Lots of data is there. I think everybody who is engaging with audience, you have your social media data, you have your demographics, you have your click-through rates, you have, in the best cases, you as well have personal relationship and talks with your patrons. So gathering data or getting hold of data is not so much of a problem. I think it really starts with having the mindset to be able to interpret the data and having tools that help you channel this data in a meaningful and sensible way. So lots of data is available. As the recorded music industry, in addition, we get very detailed data from all the microtransactions on streaming services. Just coping with this data in a sensible way is I think key, and having access to tools that help channeling this information, consolidating this information so that you can take data-driven decisions following the path to grow your audience engagement, to grow your profile is I think the key to success here.
Absolutely. Of course, data is nothing if you don't know where you want to go. So absolutely, that's super important. But anyway, Aubrey, I know you encourage art organizations to act as if they were an e-commerce business selling an online luxury product. So what do you really mean with that? And what do you see as the most recurrent barriers that prevent embracing such a mindset?
I think in so many ways, our competition is not what else is on at the arts organization down the street this weekend. Our competition is, somebody told the story, what are the kids doing this weekend? Or what are the other entertainment options in my life? And so when I say we're a luxury brand, I mean, we produce an exceptional product, an exceptionally high value product with a high price point. Many of us have very accessible entry prices, so I don't mean to get into a pricing discussion, but on the whole, at least the perception of what we offer is a luxury item. And so to think about that, but to also have the savvy of an e-commerce business, so many of us sell so many of our tickets online, to the point that for many of us, it's even the majority of our tickets now are sold online. That makes sense in 2024. So to be optimizing for that e-commerce experience, that goes right back to so much of what we've said about having the tools, having the experience, all of the tech infrastructure. So that's what I mean by that. And then the second part of the question, what are the barriers? What are the barriers to embracing a mindset? I mean, we've talked about data. That's really the focus of this part of the discussion. And I think, what I was thinking is these two polls, I think the answers are actually quite correlated. 2/3 of the first poll said my newcomers aren't coming back, or I don't know. Okay, that's a data issue. On this one, it was almost 2/3 said either I don't have the tech support I need, or I definitely don't have the tech support I need. So, correlation. And I think that in many ways could be maybe the biggest barrier to us really, really getting savvy and being able to scale that intimacy that we said earlier. And so I think the way Artelize is approaching this and trying to find a solution for us, I don't know, I'm just seeing this. I'm like, I think there's such a need in our industry for help me. I want to be there with the data. And I don't know, I think we're kind of self-identifying right now that is a big barrier.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you, Aubrey. You have also recapped a little bit exactly all that has been highlighted here. I don't know if any of you has a comment in the panelists, that we still have a little bit of time for an extra comment. So maybe, I don't know, I should let me know if you are raising your hand, but just speak if you want to close with a little last comment. It'd be really nice.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about this question of the tech infrastructure. And the poll that basically showed okay, I don't feel like I have the right tools. And my idea of what hacking is actually, it's a creative way to do something with the tools you have, but that it wasn't intended to be done that way. So basically, you have a tool, it's intended for X, you use it for Y, because you just change it, you combine it with something else, and you just make the tools work for you. This is the hacker mentality, and I'm not saying it will work in all of the cases, and I understand, if you want to sell tickets, you need a robust system, and you need to rely on it. But in general, I think the hacker mentality can go a long, long way for everyone, because you just, as was mentioned earlier by Markus, if you know where you want to go, that's the first step. But then you just make the tools work for you. And sometimes a spreadsheet is all you need. Sometimes a spreadsheet with MailChimp can work wonders. Sometimes you need to go a little bit deeper, but be super creative with this. I think this is opening up a lot of opportunities down the road, really. This kind of hacker creativity and mentality.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you, Aubrey. You have also recapped a little bit exactly all that has been highlighted here. I don't know if any of you has a comment in the panelists, that we still have a little bit of time for an extra comment. So maybe, I don't know, I should let me know if you are raising your hand. But just speak if you want to close with a little last comment.
Yeah,
Yeah, I want to add to that because I run a conference that has a hackathon as components, a music tech and data conference that has a hackathon, and it lasts for a weekend. And the reason why it lasts for a weekend is because I'm deeply impressed by how much you can accomplish in a weekend when you're working with 5 other passionate, dedicated, and focused people to do something. You may not have every single tool, you may not have all the money, you may not have all the access, but like Matthias says, I ran the conference the first year on MailChimp in a spreadsheet and had 1,000 people sign up. So I know it's entirely possible to do a lot with a little. And I think some people forget about this concept of like an MVP, minimal viable product. Not everything has to be perfect. And that's another really great advantage about having super fans and having loyal customers is if you want to try something out, if you want to try something new, you're not sure if it's quite the right fit or if it's really going to work, go to the people that you know aren't going to abandon you if something doesn't work 100% exactly the way it needs to work right away. So you call them up and say, hey, we're trying out some new things. Would you like a free ticket? Would you like to check this out first? Would you like whatever, for them to be your little guinea pigs? And that's an example of that exchange, that relationship, that community, rather than them being your ATM. That's an example of how do you reward this loyal fan, and you're getting something out of it also. But there's so many different ways that you can approach things where the minimal viable product can help everyone. You can learn from it, and that's the part of hacking, like everyone's talking about, is that like iterative process, right? Starting from one thing and then going to the next thing, then going to the bigger thing continuously. Not everything's going to happen overnight. That would be lovely if it did, but it's not. So you test it, you try it. If it works, do it again. If it doesn't work, try something else and keep going until you get exactly what you need.
Thank you so much. Now we're getting to the end, but with all this information, simply we need an outlet into action. So Artelize would like 2024 to be the year of audience growth hacking, and you are hereby invited. So you're already doing an amazing job out there. We know that. And however, we all need to learn from the best and do more of what works, one small victory at a time. Several of our panelists have already agreed to bring their unique expertise in our accelerator program, Become an Audience Growth Hacker in 2024. So we're actually super excited to invite you all to participate. I can reveal that one of the key goals of the program is to significantly raise the retention of first-timer audience from the shocking result that we saw before that Aubrey mentioned. Our accelerator combines a mentor-based program with our supportive text infrastructure. We identified 7 topics over 12 months to walk through the fundamentals of data-driven experimentation. We cover data-driven excellence, community building mastery, strategy communication and social media, merge magic, incentive programs and donorship excellence, and customer-centric programming. So now let me introduce our brand new audience engagement dashboard. So you can see here your metrics section with analytical tools. And this is your command center where you input your data, check your progress, and run experiments that refine your audience strategy in real time. Data-driven experiments help you achieve specific improvement on the targets that you choose to focus on, using your existing customer data in a specific timeline. You can see here all how the data is parsed and combined into a target group of list of actions. Notice the actions are linked to the data you need, so you can execute smoothly. Additionally, here you can see our promotional section, which provides you with suggestions for your next promotional campaign and suggested text for posting on your social media channels. With this tool, you can free up time to be even more creative and impactful when you promote your events. And no prompt is needed, since Artelize already collected the necessary data about your events. Furthermore, this information is displayed publicly to gain even more visibility with new target groups on your self-updating Artelize page.